Earlier this morning, Lincoln Riley announced that Jayden Maiva will take over as the starting quarterback at USC, replacing Miller Moss, who had been the starter since the Holiday Bowl last year. I want to talk about this from the standpoint of USC's season, what it means going ahead, what it means for Lincoln Riley, what it means for SC, even talk about, whether or not there's going to be a change at head coach. And I want to talk about it from the lens of where we expected USC to be and where USC is actually going. And this thing on my head, we'll talk about it at the end. I don't think it's that important, but you're bound to ask because I'm the only thing that you see when you watch the show here. And I appreciate that because it's just you and me and we vibing. So Jayden Maiva is going to take over to start. He transfers in from UNLV last year where he had an outstanding season as a freshman. He threw for 3,085 yards, 17 TDs, 10 interceptions, and led UNLV to an appearance in the Mountain West title game. They went 9-5, really helped continue the path that Brennan Marion is on currently with the go-go offense, throwing a lot of passes to Ricky White. It was really the Jayden Maiva, Ricky White show for the Rebels last year as Ricky White was all he down there somewhere on the West Coast. I was surprised as hell to find out that dude didn't enter the transfer portal last year because a place like USC could use him. A, he's good. B, Lincoln Riley has a fondness for bringing over receivers that like playing with quarterbacks or quarterbacks that like playing with certain receivers. See Mario Williams and SC, among other things, right? These package deals seem to be working, right? Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr., it worked. Did Kyle McCord end up transferring? Yeah. Did he go 11-1? Yeah. Did Marvin Harrison Jr. win the Biletnikoff Award? Was a first-round draft pick? Yeah. Tua Tagovailoa, Devontae Smith. Tua Tagovailoa, Jaden Waddle, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. On and on it goes. And I think you're going to continue to see such a thing. So I would not be surprised to find out, you try to find somebody that Jayden likes throwing to. And maybe that person is on the scout team, right? We saw this with Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma here recently. Dude moves up to the starting lineup because he developed a kinship with Jackson Arnold while Jackson Arnold was riding the pine. And now that we got Jayden Maiva off the pine, 2 weeks from now getting a start, you're also signaling that this is really as much about USC as it is Miller Moss. I think USC is in danger of becoming new Nebraska. And by that I mean you have joined a conference for which you have no regional affiliation, and you have left a conference for which you are synonymous with in the Pac-12, and in Nebraska's case, the Big 12, and before that, the Big 8. And you haven't really developed an identity of winning since joining this thing. They're 4-5, and that's the reason you're seeing Lincoln Riley give the hook to a starting quarterback for the third time in his career as a head coach. He first did this with Spencer Rattler, and Spencer Rattler went to Tanner Mordecai, went back to Spencer Rattler. Then he did it again with Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams turns out to be another one of those guys that he develops into a Heisman winner and a first overall pick. And then you think it's going to be Malachi Nelson. Malachi Nelson decides to transfer to Boise State. There's this thing about his shoulder and whether or not that was going to hold up. But more than that, Miller Moss won the job and he played really well. And then you run off anybody that might want to come to the program, like, say, Will Howard, who's at Ohio State, who looks like contending for the Big Ten and or national championship, which is what we expected from SC. This being Lincoln Riley's prove-it year with a quarterback that he picked that a lot of other folks did not think was going to be a Power 5 starter. Even he himself has stories, Miller Moss, of folks telling him you're not going to be a Power 5 starter, and he ends up doing that. And he's played really well. Like, he's got 2,500 yards passing, which is the second most in the Big Ten. He's also got 18 TDs to 9 picks. Problem with this is, for me, it feels like Miller Moss is USC's version of Miami's Tyler Van Dyke. And what I mean by that is Tyler Van Dyke is a guy who at Miami had thrown for 300 yards in 11 games over 30 games that he played in. So 1 in every 3, he's going for 3 bills. He also had one for like 497 and also had a string of games where he threw an interception. He threw three for 300 yards 6 straight times in 2021, but he also got those 7 picks in 7 games, multiple picks. So he had 7 games of multiple picks. Goodness me. Maybe this head thing really is getting to me. I'm joking. It's just me needing to slow down and tell you what I think, while also giving you evidence of what I think and why it is what I think. And this is why, right? Like, it's Tyler Van Dyke was streaky at Miami. Miller Moss doesn't feel as streaky, but his numbers say he is. When you have multiple games of 50 pass attempts or more, yeah, you should probably be among the conference leaders in passing yards. You should also take into account how many times you throw TDs versus how many times you throw INTs and where you're throwing them to. There are a couple of times where he's staring down Kyron Hudson and the defense is up on it and they go pick him off. Or he's trying to force the ball to Kyle Ford and they go pick him off. It also doesn't help that, and this is the USC thing as opposed to the Miller Moss thing, that his offensive line is not good. It's not bad. It's just not good. It's somewhere in the middle. And when you got somewhere in the middle, you need somebody back there that can move. And Caleb Williams demonstrated what it's like when you got an offensive line that is good and you can move, like 2022 when he won the Heisman Trophy. And he also demonstrated what it's like when you got an offensive line that's not good and you can move, when they go 7-5 with the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. That's not a good look for Lincoln Riley. And while I've talked to a couple of folks that are close to the SC program, they're nowhere near moving off of Lincoln Riley. And the buyout and all those things, I think that's part of it. I think they want to give this another year to see where it goes. And for Jayden Maiva, you get to find out if this is a guy that you feel like you can take into 2025 and make the starter, or if, you need to go into the portal and go shopping. And that is where I think SC is. Now, I don't really think that quarterback is at the top of the agenda for Lincoln Riley and what they should be able to do. I think it's more like developing that offensive line and finding a way to make your offense into one that complements your defense. That has been a Lincoln Riley problem since the day he started calling plays. The offense he runs is going to score most of the time. As a matter of fact, coming into this season, his offense as head coach was scoring 40 points or more in more than 50% of games, which means that if you didn't score around 40, you probably weren't going to beat them. That's not true anymore. And that, I think, should be an alarm for USC fans. If anything, you could always count on Lincoln Riley's offense to score. And now, not only are you blowing leads late against teams that are not good, you are also not able to score the 40 that you were promised, and the defense is out there far too often and for far too long because the nature of that offense is one that has a bunch of explosive plays. It moves quickly. Time of possession is really not their friend, which means that your defense is not getting the blow that it should, and their 3-and-outs don't count for as much. This is one of the reasons why I always take a look at who's top in scoring defense, and then I pair it with the offense, right? So Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State all got top 15 scoring defenses. Only one of those teams has a good to great offense, and that's Ohio State. Georgia has the capacity to have a good to great offense, but that's more about what Carson Beck is or isn't. And as with most things, the quarterback tells you how good you can be, and Carson Beck has Georgia in a position where they can win a national championship. He's shown the ability to do that. Drew Aller does not have Penn State in that spot. He's not the guy that is going to make you into the team that can win a national championship. Will Howard is. Will Howard has ascended to the guy that, yeah, I can go blow for blow with Dylan Gabriel. Did I make a bad play or two against Oregon? Yeah. Did I throw a pick six against Penn State? Yeah. Can I also make a play and make a big league throw and move around with my legs to go get time and or score? Yes. That's what Lincoln Riley is trying to figure out with Jayden Maiva being the starter going into next year, because you can't be new Nebraska. And I don't know that this is Lincoln Riley coaching for his job, because that's just not where we're at. If anything, I've been impressed by some of the guys that I thought were going to be on the way out, finding a way to dig themselves out, like Billy Napier, into positions where it's like, oh, okay, this might not be as bad as we think. Well, you're going to finish with Nebraska, Notre Dame, and UCLA if you are SC, which means that a losing season is on the table for you. You're already 4-5. You got to get 2 of the next 3 to guarantee a non-losing season, right? Wouldn't be a winning one, but you got that opportunity to make it to a bowl game. That means that this game against Nebraska is paramount, because Nebraska feels like the game that is going to decide whether or not you get to 6 wins or not. Now, I could see them beating UCLA. I don't see them beating Notre Dame. But with Notre Dame and Nebraska, you've got a front 7 and a defensive line that can really make it hard on your not great offensive line. That means that the guy back there has got to be able to defend himself, which means that you're going to have free rushers, and that guy is going to either have to make a play with the pass or make a play with his legs. And Miller Moss just doesn't have that mobility. And that is what you're really preparing to see. Now, everybody will tell you that the backup looks good in practice. Everybody will tell you that. And if they don't tell you that, that means they ain't got a backup, right? We expect Jayden Maiva to present himself with a bit of unknown to Nebraska. And maybe you are able to take that out on a Nebraska team that has bowl eligibility as the final boss, man. They get to bowl eligibility and just haven't been able to get it done in the Matt Rule era. And it's getting past embarrassing into frustrating and anger for Nebraska fans, because you think that you should be 6 or even 7-2 right now, as opposed to staring down the barrel of, could we actually go through this season and not get to bowl eligibility? And if you get a win against SC, they are new Nebraska, and you get to pass that on to them. And I don't know that SC wants to be new Nebraska, and I don't think they can afford to lose this game to Nebraska.